The war between the US and Iran has evolved into something entirely different in Hormuz. As of April 22, 2026, there is no ceasefire there anymore. Iran broke the ceasefire, fired on 2 ships without warning, claimed to have seized them, and published the footage. But the US is not responding. Trump is not interested in bombardment, not interested in the ceasefire violation. He's waiting for something bigger, and it's coming, and it's happening now. The US is not lifting the blockade. It's costing Iran $500 million a day. Its oil cannot get out. Its wells are about to shut down. And the 3rd aircraft carrier is only 3 days away. Iran is aware of this, breaking the ceasefire out of panic, claiming to have seized ships and going even further, threatening to cut underwater cables, close Bab el-Mandeb, and collapse the Gulf's internet infrastructure. The situation is very critical. The conflict between the US and Iran has evolved into an entirely new phase in the Strait of Hormuz, and we are facing the reality that the ceasefire has effectively ended. Events escalated at 5:47 on the morning of April 22nd. According to the British Maritime Tracking Centre, UKMTO, an IRGC gunboat fired without warning on a Liberian-flagged Greek-owned cargo vessel 15 nautical miles northeast of Oman. The bridge sustained heavy damage. 3 hours later, 8 nautical miles west of the Iranian coast, the Panama-flagged container ship Euphoria came under attack. It was fired upon, but managed to change course and escape damage. Then MSC Francesca, while waiting to transit into the Gulf of Oman, was forced into Iranian waters under IRGC naval escort. The IRGC published footage claiming to show the seizure of 2 container ships, MSC Francesca and Menandis, and announced they had been taken to Iranian waters. These operations are being assessed as Iran's reflex to protect its oil exports under blockade. Despite Trump giving an additional 3 to 5 days, Iran used that time for attack preparations. To understand why Trump is not breaking the ceasefire, you need to look at what the blockade is doing to Iran. CENTCOM announced 31 ships have been ordered to turn back, most of them oil tankers. The US seized 4 Iranian tankers. 8 more Iranian tankers were stopped and forced to reverse course. Iranian oil cannot get out. Iran is losing $400 to $500 million per day because of this blockade. Total losses are approaching $4 billion. Trump wrote on Truth Social, Iran is financially collapsing. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they are not getting paid, and the real blow is approaching. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned in a matter of days, Carr Island storage will be full and the fragile Iranian oil wells will shut down. This is critical. When oil wells shut down, reopening them can take months, even years. The blockade isn't just destroying revenue, it can destroy Iran's production capacity itself. Iran's foreign minister Iraqi described the blockade as an act of war, but the US is not lifting the blockade and Iran doesn't have the power to lift it. Trump doesn't need bombardment. Every passing day, Iran's bargaining power erodes and US military power grows. The timing of Trump's 3 to 5 day ceasefire extension coincides with USS Bush's arrival date. USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln are already in the CENTCOM area. USS George H.W. Bush is rounding the Cape of Good Hope to avoid the Houthi threat at Bab el-Mandeb and will arrive in the Gulf within 3 days. According to open-source flight tracking data, it is currently positioned near the coasts of Tanzania or Kenya. When these 3 carrier strike groups come together, a rare concentration of U.S. power will be complete. The Joint Chiefs have established a blockade framework for Hormuz. The blockade line extends from Oman's southern coast to the Iran-Pakistan border. The plan goes beyond maritime interdiction. It includes a fully integrated missile defense architecture. And the buildup is not just at sea, it continues in the air and on land. Air Force. More than 150 fighter jets are being deployed to the region, including F-22 Raptor, F-35 Lightning, F-18 Super Hornet, and F-16 Fighting Falcon. Deployment has not stopped even while Islamabad talks continue. Bombardment B-1 Lancer and B-52 Stratofortress strategic bombers are in intensive training at RAF Fairford in England. If negotiations collapse, they will likely launch second-round strikes against Iran. Special operations. 3 more AC-130J Ghostриder gunships are being deployed to Saudi Arabia, bringing the total in the region to 6. They will arrive within 48 to 72 hours. They are planned to participate in the second phase of Operation Epic Fury. Ground forces. A brigade from the 28th Airborne Division has been deployed. Total force could reach 10,000 troops. Despite the program being officially canceled, deployment of M10 Booker light tanks is being discussed. There are signs that some units have already begun air transport logistics. C-17 Globemaster and C-30 Hercules transport aircraft are in continuous deployment carrying personnel, ammunition, armored vehicles, and logistics material. Washington's objective is clear: to establish a fortified military zone in the Western Gulf, a fortress where 3 carrier strike groups and escort ships can operate in a protected environment. One analyst summarized it. The ceasefire extension is not de-escalation, it's the front armor. The IRGC is making a serious miscalculation right now. The military is fully loaded. The third carrier arriving in the Gulf within 3 days is pushing tension to its peak. Experts are defining this as the war's critical threshold point. These developments are fundamentally changing both military and geostrategic balances. It is certain that Iran did not sit idle during the ceasefire period. It restored missile and UAV launch ramps at record speed in underground tunnels. Footage published by the Iran War Message Center shows long underground tunnels, missiles and kamikaze UAVs are being produced and stored. Iran placed a 2,000-kilometer range Khorramshahr-4 ballistic missile in Thrawn's Revolution Square, a platform used in actual attacks against Israel. Heavy warhead, the message is not coded. According to CBS News, Pentagon intelligence reports show that 50% of Iran's missile stocks, 60% of its naval forces, and most of its air force remain operational, despite U.S. claims of major success with the Epic Fury operation. But Iran's biggest problem is not its military capacity, it's that nobody knows who is making decisions inside. The IRGC acts separately, the Navy acts separately, the parliament speaker makes different statements. Due to the Mosaic Defense Plan, it is unclear who commands the distributed forces. Iran never officially accepted the ceasefire extension, but it also never openly said it was breaking it. There is an equation on the U.S. side too. According to CSS analysis, over 7 weeks of war, the U.S. consumed 45% of its precision strike missiles and half of its Patriots. But the U.S. logistical superiority is clear. It can replenish its ammunition. And a far more controversial claim has also emerged on the U.S. side. Former CIA analyst Larry Johnson on his YouTube program Judging Freedom made this claim. During an emergency White House meeting, Trump allegedly requested nuclear codes, but Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Caney reportedly said no. There is no official confirmation of this claim, and there probably never will be. But the mere emergence of such a claim shows how dangerous a threshold this war has reached. If the nuclear option is being discussed, the table has moved to a very different place. The regime's fragmented structure, the U.S. ammunition equation, and the nuclear threshold debate. These three factors make the next 72 hours extremely critical. Iran is militarily weakened, but it still holds the fuse of the global economy. At least that's what it claims. Iranian sources have drawn a coordinated escalation scenario that would simultaneously collapse the world's oil supply, the Gulf's internet, and the Europe-Asia connection. Let's examine them one by one. First threat, the Yanbu pipeline. If this pipeline carrying Saudi oil to the Red Sea is hit by Iranian missiles, Saudi Arabia's backup route bypassing Hormuz would be closed. Second threat, Fujairah, one of the world's largest fuel bunkering hubs in the UAE within Iran's missile range, and it has been targeted before. Third threat, Bab el-Mandeb. When Hormuz closes, the only alternative route left is this strait. Iran's ally, the Houthis, control it. If Iran activates the Houthis, the world's two major maritime choke points would close simultaneously. Fourth threat, underwater cables. Approximately 7 major cable systems passing through the Strait of Hormuz carry more than 97% of all Gulf internet traffic. Iranian sources published a detailed map of these and described them as extremely vulnerable. Iranian UAVs have previously attacked data centers in Bahrain and the UAE. If all three happen simultaneously, a quarter of the world's energy supply would disappear instantly. Saudi Arabia would have no backup route left, and Gulf states would be plunged into digital darkness. Cloud infrastructure, financial systems, communications would collapse. But now let's ask the real question. Can Iran do this? Short answer, very difficult. The U.S. Navy is currently positioned in the Gulf with 3 carrier strike groups. Underwater teams are on active duty with cable and infrastructure protection capability. The Houthis can threaten Bab el-Mandeb, but the U.S. is already managing this risk by routing Bush around that strait, Yanbu pipeline and Fujairah. These are within Iran's missile range. But such an attack would show that Iran has officially broken the ceasefire and declared direct war on Saudi Arabia and the UAE. This would fully unite the coalition against Iran, and Iran is not in a position to withstand that. Are Iran's cards a real leverage? Yes, in theory, but the cost of using each one is heavier than the card itself, and the U.S. is building up precisely to deter Iran from playing any of these cards. The real question is, this is a regime acting in panic sober enough to calculate the cost. The Hormuz crisis is not only hitting Iran, it's hitting the entire world. 20% of global oil trade passes through this strait. Commercial traffic has nearly stopped. Brent crude exceeded $100. Insurance companies have declared the strait a risk zone. Premiums have multiplied. Freight costs have risen up to 200%. The attacks on Greek and Liberian flagged ships, the seizure of Panama flagged MSC Francesca, have drawn third countries into the crisis. This is no longer a bilateral U.S.-Iran conflict. China and India, the two countries most dependent on Iranian oil, are searching for alternative routes. Europe's LNG imports are rising. Global inflationary pressure is increasing. On April 22nd, military planners from more than 30 countries gathered in London to plan a multinational mission to safeguard Hormuz, and Iran's ship seizure moves are designed precisely to increase this global pressure. It wants insurance companies to close the strait, freight costs to explode, and the world economy to pressure the U.S. into lifting the blockade. But so far, it's not working. The U.S. is not backing down. The next 72 hours could be the turning point of this war. When USS Bush arrives in the Gulf, the U.S. will complete its full power concentration with 3 carrier strike groups. The Islamabad talks are on hold. Vance's Pakistan visit has been postponed. Iran announced that negotiators would not attend, then stepped back. Who is negotiating is still not clear. Trump told CNN there is no time pressure. He stated that he wants Iran to hand over its enriched uranium. 3 scenarios are on the table. First, Iran sits at the negotiation table with a unified proposal. The blockade is lifted. This is Iran's last exit. Second, Iran does not submit a proposal or the IRGC continues provocations. Trump launches the second phase of Operation Epic Fury with 3 aircraft carriers, 150-plus fighter jets, and full ammunition resupply. Third, the status quo continues. The blockade persists. Iran's economy collapses a little more each day. Wells shut down. This is Trump's preferred scenario because time is working in his favor. And Iran's every panic move, seizing ships, opening fire, missile displays, is not improving the situation. On the contrary, it's strengthening the U.S. argument to increase the pressure. So, how exactly did this pressure corner Iran? In fact, before reaching this point, Iran had lost all of its strategic assets one by one since the start of the war. Now, let's look at the big picture. This blockade isn't an isolated move. It's the removal of Iran's last card. Since the war began, Iran's leverage has been stripped away one by one. Air defense collapsed in the first weeks. Over 100 coalition aircraft entered Iranian airspace, struck central Tehran, and returned. Untouchable underground depots were penetrated by B-2s carrying 14-ton bunker busters. Naval power was destroyed, Bushehr naval base leveled, command chain was broken, IRGC headquarters demolished, intelligence chief and operations commander killed, proxy network weakened, Miabad logistics hub struck, supply chains to Hezbollah and Houthis disrupted, and Iran's last card was Hormuz. We'll close the strait, hold the world economy hostage. For decades, Tan's most powerful deterrent. When the war started, they actually closed it. And it actually sent oil prices surging, dragged Europe into a fuel crisis, sparked trucker uprisings from Ireland to France. But now the U.S. is forcing that strait open, clearing the mines, creating a safe corridor, offering it to world trade, and simultaneously locking Iran's own ports. Oil can't leave, materials can't enter, revenue drops to zero. Iran wanted to punish the world by closing the strait. America's answer: fine, we're opening the strait, but we will be the ones locking you. Iran's own weapon turned against it. The strait is open for everyone except Iran. The Allied front is mixed, and this wasn't a surprise for the U.S. Trump said other countries will join, but currently only the UAE and Bahrain have announced support. The UK, Germany, and Australia refused assistance. France is distant. The U.S. is running this operation largely alone, raising questions about the blockade sustainability. 2 carrier strike groups, dozens of destroyers, reconnaissance aircraft, submarines, all requiring fuel, ammunition, personnel rotation, and maintenance. How long can a single country's navy sustain an operation of this scale? Weeks are possible, months are difficult, years nearly impossible. The real question is whether the blockade will exhaust the U.S. before it forces Iran to the table. For developing nations, the blockade means rising energy bills. India, South Korea, Japan, every country buying Iranian oil must find alternative sources. India's situation is especially critical. The world's 3rd largest oil importer was buying cheap Iranian crude, now forced to pay market prices elsewhere. If the blockade extends, the risk of global recession is serious. The ceasefire in Hormuz has effectively ended. Iran is seizing ships, opening fire, publishing footage, but the blockade is strangling Iran a little more each passing day, 500 million a day, wells about to shut down, and the 3rd aircraft carrier arriving within 3 days. Do you think Iran can withstand this pressure, or will the next 72 hours trigger a new phase of the war? Share in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on PPR Global's latest analyses. Thank you for choosing us. We invite you to join us on Spotify to make your long drives more enjoyable.